Hello and welcome. Happy Thursday, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to be here to talk about another topic around the MBA application journey. Now, some of you may be waitlisted from round one, may still be on the waitlist, and some of you may be expecting a waitlist upcoming with the round two deadlines coming in at the end of the month. Or decisions rather coming in at the end of the month. So this is a preemptive session that you can definitely come back and watch, but also there's actions that you can take today that we're going to be definitely discussing in more detail. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out a few logistics, just so we're all on the same page, essentially. As you know, every week we have a different topic that we cover in relation to the business school application. And next week, we're going to talk about some of the pitfalls that applicants experience in terms of if you're thinking through the next application cycle. So definitely join us to discuss that or to understand what are some pitfalls that you should avoid, especially if you're applying, meaning you haven't submitted your application yet. And that will be next week at the same time as usual. In today's session, we are on a few platforms. So whichever platform you're joining us from, please please write your comments, your questions in there. Also, let us know what kind of content you would like to see. We're always looking for, to provide essentially resources that are important to the applicants on their journey. So write in the comment what you would like to see in the future, and we'll definitely integrate those in our marketing plans as we progress. Excellent. And you will have a few other, information that you can leverage as we go through this session that will be showing up on the comment of your content. So for today, let's just dive right in. We have had an increase in audience. So some of you are new here, and I wanted to make a very quick intro to Sia Admissions. What we do, we are a boutique admission coaching firm focused on supporting applicants in their application journey, primarily understanding and helping them present an application that captures their strengths as an applicant, but also is in alignment with what business schools are looking for. We do have, as a result, a very tailored approach. We do not believe in one size fits all. And as such, every applicant that we work with, we dive deeper into their narratives, their experiences, and then highlight areas where their strengths that need to be captured, but there's some weaknesses where they can develop in terms of strengthening their profile and their candidacy, especially for those that we start working on their applications earlier. It's always a benefit to start that process early, to realize where are some of your areas for development that you can strengthen. We do have a very comprehensive approach to our coaching. As such, we go through a variety of different steps. All builds on one another to make sure that collectively you present a candidate that is a high achiever that the top 20 business schools are looking for in terms of their candidate profile. Now, who am I? I am the founder. I'm an alumnus of NYU and Yale, and I started Sia with that intention of making sure that applicants that are working with coaches, at least the ones that choose to work with Sia, are getting that individualized experience, individualized coaching that is really tailored to their candidate and to their profile and their experiences. Everyone has a unique story that they're bringing to the table. And what you definitely don't want is to have a cookie cutter application that sounds like just like everyone else in your demographic, at least. So let's talk through what we're going to cover today. Our focus is, understanding essentially what business schools are looking for when placing applicants on the waitlist. And that is the structure of this discussion. I'm going to try to keep on time. I do have a tendency of being very passionate about what I do, therefore I talk a lot. So bear with me. Please ask any questions in any platform you're joining us from. We will keep them anonymous, meaning we won't show them on the screen, but I will read them out loud. This way I can answer your direct questions, but of course, as this will be a replay available on our YouTube channel later, we want to keep your anonymity and not capture your name on the screen. So feel safe in that regard. So whichever platform you're joining us, please, tell us what is pressing question that you have for us, or for me rather. All right, so let's continue. So who is this session for? This session is obviously for individuals who have been waitlisted. So if you're someone who has been waitlisted, whether you applied in round one, like I mentioned earlier, or you are still a little bit uncertain of where you stand, especially for round two, as decisions come out at the end of the month for most schools, for most top 20 business schools, as well as for those individuals who are applying or planning to apply in the future. It actually is a great strategy to attend these kinds of sessions and learn what are some of the pitfalls so that you can avoid them before you submit your application, and obviously make sure that you're taking steps, proactive steps now before you submit your application in round one next year, round two next year, I guess this year, but so that you have of course, a better chance of not going on the wait list to begin with. Because the wait list is, of course, it can be a very long process. Sometimes applicants are on the wait list until June of the year that they're starting, which obviously you're in limbo essentially and don't know where you stand. So before we dive into what you should do, it is important to understand why business schools are essentially placing applicants on the wait list. So a wait list is really not random. And what you want to understand is what are some strategic reasons why the school is placing someone on the wait list, and what the admission committee is still evaluating, and what you can do now to obviously strengthen your candidacy. So a few areas that are important to remember is, first, there is so schools place candidates on the wait list as they are thinking about the class composition and sort of balancing all of those details out. So obviously schools are aiming to have a well-rounded and diverse class so that everyone can learn from those different perspectives. So this means that they're looking for candidates to build a cohort that has candidates from different industries, geographies, career goals, demographics, etc. So if your application is common among applicants, and you may be placed on the wait list while schools are still deciding how the class is going to be structured finally, right? Of course, this is unfair to you, but that is one of the reasons why business schools place candidates on the wait list. The other reason is that they can place a candidate on a wait list is to protect yield. So yield is essentially the percentage of admitted students who enroll, who say yes to the school. So if they suspect that you may choose another program, they may place you on a wait list to see if you demonstrate stronger commitment. And we're going to talk what that actually means and looks like later in our slides. And then the third potential reason why you can be placed on the wait list is that there is a profile gap or weaknesses in your application. So something in your application may have raised a few doubts, whether that's your weak test scores, weak GPA, or a combination of the two. You may have unclear goals. Interview didn't fully convince them that you are a good fit. But of course, the good news is that they didn't think that you were not a fit entirely, right? And for that reason, you may be put on a wait list. So they didn't want to reject you outright, but they were waiting to see, you still have some potential. They want to see what you do, essentially, to move yourself and improve your standing in the application. So the waitlist is, of course, a second evaluation. Sorry, let me just see if there's a comment in here. Okay. Sorry, I'm monitoring the comment section. So this way I make sure that I'm answering any questions along the way. So essentially look at the waitlist as a second evaluation. It is not a rejection, and you shouldn't be thinking that, if you're put on the waitlist, you're going to be rejected eventually. That may happen, of course, but being placed on the waitlist is not for someone the school thinks that they're not a good fit for the school. They think that you have potential, but they still want to see a little bit more before they make the final call. So you are still in the running, which is what I'm trying to say, and take that as a positive, or at least as close to a positive as you can, to know that you are still someone who can get off the waitlist and be admitted. So your question now is, how can you strengthen your profile to win your case, essentially, right? So a few things that you can do is, the first thing is you want to demonstrate interest, of course. Schools admit applicants who can actively show they want to be there, right? Since especially because I mentioned earlier, the yield is actually quite important to business school. It affects ranks, it affects applicant pool, future applicant pools. So definitely it's something that they value a lot, and they want to know that you are committed to that school, and the way that you can do that is to demonstrate interest, of course. Another element is professional and personal growth since submitting your application. Now, I know applicants oftentimes think that you've submitted your application, now you're on the wait list, and you just wait, right? That's actually farthest from the truth. There's things that are happening, activities that are going on since you've submitted your application, right? So if you applied in round 1, which is around September, and decisions come out in December, so there is a period of about 3 months that life has been going on, right? Activities have happened. So if you advanced in that period of time, and if you're still on the wait list now, it's like about 5 months, right? If you've advanced in any meaningful way in your professional setting, then, of course, there's an opportunity for you to say something about it. But if you haven't advanced, there is obviously little reason why the admission committee should be relooking at your application. But a promotion, major project milestone, new leadership roles, or even refined perspective on your goals can definitely reinforce your candidacy, and as a result, obviously warrant for communicating this new intel, new insights, new experiences with the admission team. You want to also write concise and impactful updates to the admission team. You have to recognize, of course, and I'm sure you read Reddit comments and all these kinds of different forums of people's communication, where they always talk about, send those update letters frequently, all the time, make sure that they know that you really want to be there. And there's an element of truth to that. But what's important is that you recognize who is on the other side. You have to try to place yourself in the shoes of those receiving your letters and receiving letters of other applicants like yourself. So the admission team obviously gets hundreds of waitlist update letters all the time. And what's important that is often not talked about is what is actually included in those update letters. So a generic or repetitive information that they've already seen in your application is not going to move you off the waitlist. That is information they have, and you essentially just wasted their time. But if you write intentional, clearly highlighting new strengths that make you a stronger candidate today than when you first applied, that is a reason to write a update letter that will move the needle, that will have the admission team reassess your candidacy and get new insights in terms of the decision of what you are, and the decision that they have to make, of course. Then also you have to think about timing, right? I mentioned just a few seconds ago that, you read a lot about, continuously sending those update letters. That's true. Of course, you want to continuously update them on what's happening. But it's also important to know when and how you engage with the admission team. That actually matters. Some schools have specific preferences in terms of what timing they're looking for, and others are a little more flexible in terms of what they're expecting of you. Sending, multiple update letters without any substance is not going to move the needle. It's not going to engage the admission committee in the way that you intend it to be, but rather sending poignant, concise emails strategically in terms of timing. So if they're flexible, about every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, you're sending an update with new intel, new insights, new ideas, new experiences that you've had that make you a stronger candidate, then that is absolutely something that you can do. The admission committee is really placing you on a wait list, and they're looking for new information, more information that they can make a final decision on your candidacy and make sure that the information that you're providing is additive to your application and not repetitive to what you have already shared with them. What is important to remember at this stage is that you can be, of course, on the wait list for a while, and you have to accept that. The further away you get outside of round 2 deadlines, the more likely it is that when and if you get off the wait list, that you have to take action, knowing that you probably can't negotiate any scholarship because by that point the scholarship has been dispersed. And you definitely want to try to get off the wait list sooner rather than later, where you still have chance and still have opportunities to get some funding in the process as well. And sometimes, of course, I just want to admit, but at the end of the day, your admission will, an element of the admission is accepting the fee that you're paying for that education, right? So what's important is that you know what actions you need to take. So a few things that you can do now, or if you are waitlisted, meaning in round 2, or round 3, or future rounds, essentially, is to clarify first and foremost, you want to clarify your standing with the schools, and this if possible. So some programs allow the opportunity for you to understand where you can strengthen your profile. Not why you were placed on the wait list, but they can give you that you can have a conversation with an admission representative of that target institution and ask them where some areas that you can develop and make sure that you get that you strengthen your profile. If that is something that the school offers, absolutely take advantage of it and do exactly what they tell you to do in that meeting. The second thing that you want to do is submit a targeted and meaningful update. So like I said, schools don't want updates just for update's sake. Any information you provide should, of course, address potential weaknesses. So this means you have to actually evaluate your profile, where your weaknesses lie. And then, of course, integrate responses to those weaknesses in the form of actions that you've taken. That can include promotions, new leadership roles, new extracurricular activities, courses that you've enrolled in, higher test scores that you have taken. Any of those information that helps strengthen your candidacy is what goes on that update, letter that you share with the admission team. Sometimes some schools care about endorsements, and you can include an additional endorsement when appropriate. This can be someone who is a key advocate, such as a senior leader at your company or a alumnus of the institution, who can reinforce the fit that you have with the program. What's important here to remember is that the insights that that recommender essentially is including should be additive and not a repetition of what you already included in your one or two letters of recommendation that the school already has read. And of course, you want to reaffirm your interest in the program. So schools want to admit candidates who are going to enroll, like I mentioned in the yield slide. And this means engaging with schools, such as attending their events online, going to visit campus, connecting with current students, alumni, and essentially being present in the activities that are happening in and around the institution to demonstrate that you are really committed to the program, especially if they feel that you may say yes to other programs and say no to them. This is one of the elements that you can definitely use and communicate in your update letter that you will share with the admission team. You can also share goals, update goals. So look at what goals have you communicated and were they clear? There's an opportunity for you to refine it, not change it entirely, of course, but refine your goals and communicate clearly the actions that you will be taking to ensure that you have success in that future goal that you have. Perfect. All right, so we have a few more minutes. Let's just continue. And of course, what's important to remember that I mentioned earlier, a waitlist strategy is not a one-size-fits-all. At least maybe we're biased because that's how we see this process. This is about highlighting where your strengths, where your weaknesses are, and that's where an authentic application comes through. And your next steps is really to tailor to put together a tailored strategy for your own specific case. Obviously, every school has a different waitlist policy and every candidate has a different profile. So making sure that you put together a strategic, school-specific and you-specific action plan is going to be the difference maker in terms of getting you off that wait list and moving along in making plans to go to business school and, obviously starting your new program in the fall. If you want to talk about how we have built waitlist strategy game plans for candidates and the successes that they've had, definitely happy to talk about that and talk about your specific case and ways that we can support your waitlist strategy. Feel free to reach out. We have, there's a QR code on the screen, but there will be also a link on the screen as well that you can, join, register, and book a call with me. So we have about 5 minutes. Finally, I made a presentation where I didn't go over time. Any questions that you guys have, definitely write them in the chat of any platform that you're joining, and I will answer them in this next 5 minutes. But if you are watching it as a replay, please write your questions as well, and happy to answer those. Within the next week, we're going to be monitoring this live and answering questions that come through. We did receive a few questions that came through the registration, so maybe we'll start with those while everyone thinks. So the question is, how I have strong SATs, so GMAT, GPA, work experience, but I was still waitlisted. What factors beyond numbers contribute to waitlisting? This is an excellent question. Oftentimes, what I see with applicants that are waitlisted, and I look at their application and I read through what they've submitted, one of the common threads is that they haven't really communicated their value add effectively. So sometimes I look at a resume and I see so many flaws in terms of the way the experiences are communicated. I know everyone wants to talk about the successes, but a resume is an opportunity for you to say, to illustrate you in action. So oftentimes, one of the things that we also integrate in our waitlist strategy plan is to work through an updated resume, one that it's more accessible, not jargon heavy, one that captures your contributions, captures a holistic presentation of a candidate and how this candidate is going to be adding value to the classroom. So that's one of the reasons why one can be waitlisted. Sometimes I see applicants where it's really hard to read the resume because it's just so packed and there's no story in there. So I ask that you be conscientious of who you're communicating with. They're reading thousands and thousands of applications every single year. And if you are presenting, a very complicated read, it's not that they don't read things, but they're not going to sit there and try to decipher what you're trying to say. You have to really be clear in your communication. Oftentimes, so that's one area that you can definitely develop. Another area you can develop is maybe they're concerned that you're not going to be engaged in your community because there may not be a lot of extracurricular involvement. So there's an opportunity for you to showcase that, showcase how you've been involved, even if you didn't have a official title in a community engagement kind of activity. And there's many times when I work with waitlist candidates where they have had amazing experiences that they just forgot to include in their application. So there's an opportunity to reassess your entire, application that you've submitted and where some areas that you can develop further. Often the other element is goals. Goals are really important in the admission decision-making process because it determines or it helps the admission team see how you're thinking about your goals. Are they feasible and can they support you in those goals? And sometimes they are confusing. And they require clarification. So that's an opportunity for you to demonstrate, that you are someone who has thought through this process, can refine your goals as well. And other times, recommenders can definitely play a huge role in supporting your application. So I mentioned in the slide some areas that you can work with that. But again, all of this is candidate specific, right? Sometimes I speak with applicants and when they share with me all the data points, right, the stats, to me, it doesn't make sense why were they placed on the wait list. And then when I read their application, I see a lot of reasons why they may have been placed on the wait list. So it's really, person specific but generally speaking, those are some of the elements that you can be placed on the wait list, especially if you think about communication, because that is such an important part of business school engagement and experience, because everyone there is coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, and you need to be able to communicate in a language that is accessible to all. All right, perfect. So we're going to end our session here. Again, I want to invite you to our next session where we're going to talk about, 5 MBA application mistakes applicants make and how can you strengthen and make sure you avoid those mistakes in the next session. So please register, write your questions. We will integrate our slides with those questions in mind. And if you have any questions after this live, definitely write them in the comments. Like I said, we will be monitoring those for the next week. And if you want to talk about how we can support your application specifically or your waitlist game plan specifically, feel free to reach out for a consultation where we talk about your application, your areas of struggle, and ways that we can help you put together essentially a strong waitlist strategy plan that can definitely strengthen your candidacy and get you off that waitlist. Thank you again for being here, and I will see you next week.